Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Live. And today we have Brian Johnson. Hey, Brian. Thanks for showing.
Rico, how are you?
Good, good. Been a busy week for you, I'm sure.
A lot of them are lately.
Yes, seems to be. Seems to be. Before we get right into it with Brian, City Manager here at Peachtree Corners, let's just say thank you to EV Remodeling Inc. for being a corporate sponsor of ours. Eli, who the owner of the company, lives here in Peachtree Corners. They do great work. Check them out. They've been a great supporter of our work as well. We appreciate them for doing that. You can check out evremodelinginc.com and see all the great work that they're doing here in City of Peach Corners as well as throughout the metro area. So, Brian, it's been weeks leading up to the event last night. We're recording this a day after the Curiosity Lab Criterion Road Race, which was big event here at Peachtree Corners, part of that Speed Week that Atlanta's holding.
Yep.
And midweek on what started out as a rainy day, but I understand everything went well and phenomenal stuff. And why don't you give us a little detail about how it went?
Well, as you remember when we've talked about, this was a result of a conversation and a meeting that we had here at the city when we were at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas, and we met
Hmm.
with a company called Spoke Safety that has created a device that can allow for enhanced safety for what are termed vulnerable road users, and that are essentially anybody who is on a roadway that's not in an automobile. So this would be everything from motorcycles down to people who use e-scooters to bicyclists and even pedestrians. But this
Right.
device, which is about the size of a pack of cards, allows
Mm.
for there to be two-way communication between where this device is and an automobile. And so it'll basically be telling, cars, hey, here is where, this vulnerable road user is. And it can
Right.
receive signals as well to where a car is like, fine, well, this is where we are. And so it can create basic safety messages to where in the case of bicyclists, if you had this device with you and you
Hmm.
were approaching a car from the right, the driver of the car would get an alert saying, bicycle approaching on the right.
Right.
Uh, and this company had come up with the technology, and they wanted or needed
Hmm.
some a location that had the infrastructure in place to facilitate the deployment and the demonstration of this technology. And they already had a relationship with Audi and with Qualcomm.
Right.
And we started talking, and I said, well, we have the proper city streets to be able to support this. Curiosity Labs, the streets inside Curiosity Lab can do it.
Hmm.
And they got excited. And so then there was talk about, all right, if this is going to be the world's first deployment demonstration of this technology,
Right.
can we make this into a significant event? How can we make sure that when it's deployed, it's done well? And I had some experience both as a participant back when I did a lot of cycling
Hmm.
and as the city manager of a community that had a long standing Criterium event every year, the Sunny King Criterium in Anniston, Alabama. And so I said, what if we did a Criterium here in Peachtree Corners and used that as an opportunity? And they loved it. So the result was, in a very short period of time, we were able to secure a date right in the middle of Speed Week, in between the two weekend events of
Right.
Athens Twilight and the Sunny King, and get a midday event. And we had a criterium here that was part of the official USA criteriums, annual
Yeah.
calendar this year. And we had we had all the racing teams come out here, and we created this criterium. And in between the pro women's and pro men's event, we officially unveiled this technology, deployed it on a public street, did it live streaming. This event was live streamed internationally.
Hmm.
And the result of it was a successful deployment. We now have an official partnership with Audi. Um,
Phenomenal. Yeah.
and yes, and so we will now be exploring the enhancement of this vulnerable road user technology in a way that we can make it better, make it easier to use, and to help scale it up so that we can, improve the safety of those vulnerable road users that are on the roadway. Maybe one day, if this technology works out, and the theory behind it is sound, but so if it
Hmm.
works out, we can look back and think that we played a small part in helping improve the safety on our roadways.
Yeah, amazing. It's just the fact that the city's able to do that and provide this atmosphere, this environment to be able to do that type of testing. I mean, everything starts out, with the device. I can actually see this device becoming smaller, or maybe even morphing into being able to use it as an app on phones already with GPS locations and stuff. So, but it has to start somewhere. I'm glad the city's able to be able to provide that environment. And that's just crazy that Audi is now an official partner in this stuff. There aren't that many car companies out there, right? So to be able to have Audi come and say we want to be an official partner here, that's just awesome. I mean, just
He has to go all the way to Germany. It's Volkswagen Group is who owns
hmm.
Audi. So I had to go all the way over there for them to bless off on it. But they did because we have an environment that they're really not finding elsewhere. Audi, like the
Yeah,
big other big OEMs, has their own private test track for their
right,
vehicles.
sure.
But this is to do testing with this vulnerable road user technology, and you need public streets and you need
Hmm.
the public. So we'll play a small part. We'll put some of these devices on our public works vehicles. We'll put them in our city marshal vehicles,
Right.
and we'll even have like our public works employees who are mowing the lawns, or they're mowing
Right.
the ends out, like Peachtree
Uh-huh.
Parkway. Have it now. You may brought up a good point. This technology is great, and Audi's testing was for the messages that there's like a cyclist, approaching from the right or whatever, to come up on
Hmm.
the dashboard of the car. So that's where Audi's really wanting to have cars coming off the assembly line with the ability to receive these messages just where you would where if your check oil light came on or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
it could even be, audible if you want it to be. But
Hmm.
as we know that even if every single brand new car coming off the line had this, it's going to be 25 plus years before we flush out most of the existing cars that don't have that
Sure.
technology. So
Sure.
how do we scale this sooner? And you hit
Yeah.
it right on, and that is through an app. We talked
Hmm.
about it once before. Even if I am going somewhere somewhere in town, or especially closer to Atlanta where it's getting more dense,
Yeah.
even if I know exactly where I'm going, you know what I will still do? I'll pull my phone out and I'll
Hmm.
pull Waze up or Google
Yes. That's right.
Maps for
Right.
the traffic,
Right.
because I want to know, all right, I know how to get there, but is traffic bad? Do I need to take a different route? If we can get this technology to
Right.
come up on messages inside of like Waze or Google
That's
Maps,
right.
or
Perfect.
everybody will be able to
Yes.
use this. And so
I think,
you hit
yeah,
that
that
nail
makes a
right
lot.
on the head. So that's how we scale this. So again, we're going to do our small part of making our ecosystem
Mhm.
available for this type of technology to,
Uh,
hopefully become
and
ubiquitous
that,
in everything.
yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I can see the applications even if it doesn't get into ways, although, small companies like this that start off get bought out by larger companies, right? Because they get absorbed into their environment, like you
Yep.
said. So this way, Waze can be able to provide that information to the driver. I mean, sometimes I'll put on, Apple Map and stuff like that, or Waze, just because I may be on the phone and I want the system to be able to tell me,
You
remind me
want
where
you
I'm
want to
making that
drive
turn.
lazy. That's exactly
Yes, yes,
right.
my wife says
I
that.
do the
She's like,
same thing, and you're like, I don't
yes,
even have to think of where's my next turn because I'm
that's
just
right.
having to. Yeah, it's a good point as
That's
well.
right. Because otherwise, you have to be aware of everything
Yep.
around you at every single minute. Which I'm not a bad driver. I think I'm a good driver, but it's like auto assist. So it just
Yes.
right. So I think that's where right. That's where we're going. So yeah, if it can be in an app like that, or I can even see Uber, let's say, or Lyft, looking at that and saying, our drivers, this is a propensity. Maybe I don't know what the data shows, but they don't want their drivers hitting people and having problems too. So I could see a big company like that looking at this also and saying, you know what, that's not a bad add-on to what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean,
So
great points. But, at the end of the day, we had a pretty cool event. We had a couple hundred people here
yeah,
as spectators, especially near the end of the
yeah,
evening around, 7 to around 9:45 when it ended.
yeah,
And that was, with it being a first time event, wasn't great weather, and it isn't in our downtown. I
right.
was, I was, a little bit worried that the turnout would not be there, but it was. We had food trucks here. We had some companies showing off some other, types of
Hmm.
technology. The racing teams were out here big, and the pro racers loved the course. They thought it was very technical and very unique.
Hmm.
And we had we had racers from all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Europe,
Oh,
all over the country. It was a pretty cool thing. Puts us on the map. It gave our community a unique, event to go
oh,
to, and we, were, putting Curiosity Labs, ecosystem to use. So all in all, a good event. Couldn't do it without rock star staff
yeah,
that put it on. And when you surround yourself with smart people, and they tell you the resources they need, and you get it to them and get out of their way,
mm,
it can do some great stuff. So I got a
yeah,
unbelievable staff, and then obviously mayor and council, they support us. They are open to new things like this. They were well attended throughout the course of the day, because it started with amateurs. you
right.
know
3 o'clock.
we
Right.
even had the small kids race. So
Mm.
we had the 5 to 7 year old, and then like 8 to 10 year olds, and they got on their bikes, and they had a started here and then ended at the starting line. And it's always
Right.
cool to see those kids. Everything from the kids who don't pedal yet; they just use their
Mm.
feet.
Hmm.
Down to ones with training wheels, and
Right.
others
Right.
that can ride a bike. And so that was cool too. So it was a good event.
Cool. Takes a lot of logistical work to get this put
It does.
together, especially in that short amount of time that you guys had. So I'm
Yeah, it was really
impressed.
early February is when we decided to do
Yeah,
it. So
that's
I,
not a
I
lot
was
of time.
pleased with it. So I think you know right now we're probably leaning it forward in the saddle on doing it again. I don't
Good.
really have a reason not to. So other than just the time and energy it takes to set it up. But
Right.
anyway, good things happening here. It's never a dull moment. Peachtree
No,
Corners.
for sure,
Sure.
for sure. I mean, and we should hit upon a few of these things as some quick bursts because there are quite a few things. Well, not quite a few things, but there's always a lot of things. But there's four elements that I guess, just want to hit real quick on. We've dove into them in more detail before, but just to give an update on it. So we discussed at one point about pickleball, looking at possibly a 40 or 50 court facility here in Peachtree Corners. And I think the largest is what I found. The largest in the metro area was 25, I think, or something, when I was checking stats on that of what was available. So feasibility study happening, not happening? Where is that going?
Yep. So we talked about it. Yes, for us to do this right, to not, shoot too high, too low, we brought some professionals in. So it's a sports facility consulting firm that does feasibility studies. So we've commissioned this firm to do one. It'll take about a month, and ultimately they'll come
Okay.
back and they'll tell us what is the market we're competing with? What's the demand out there? What can we expect as far as special events and how much economic development activity? What about
Hmm.
ongoing? What size does it need to be? Are we going to cannibalize something if we do it? All of the things to consider. And then based on that, mayor and council can look at it and make a decision on, does the city want to facilitate doing something? Maybe we do and it's smaller than we thought because of
Hmm.
whatever. Maybe we shoot for the stars and we want to do it. Who knows? But we got
Right.
about a month. And when they present the results, I'll end up organizing a meeting and invite kind of the people in Peachtree Corners that are involved in pickleball and care
Hmm.
about it, everything, from even you as you've gotten more interest in it
Yeah,
and
for sure.
reporting on it, to people who play it a lot, to companies who are looking to maybe even be involved in managing it if we do it, and just kind of get everybody together and let them hear the results, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Cool. So we'll see that study sometime after that 4 weeks, probably
Yep.
at a city council meeting, I guess, or a public meeting.
Oh, I'll probably, to be honest with you, I'll probably have the results presented before that at a,
Hmm.
a different meeting, and then go in front of council.
Okay.
Because council's gonna, they're gonna need to make a decision based off of it. That would be more of
Right.
what they do at the city council meeting, is to
Right.
say, all right, we heard the results. We've had a chance to, you know, digest it. This is what we're
Hmm.
going to do about it. So I'll probably just schedule an evening one night, or
Okay.
maybe a lunch one. And, I mean, it's going to be inviting the people who have reached out to me and are
Right.
involved and have been like, man, I played a lot. What can I do to
Right.
whatever? People who care about it, those are the ones who are going to want to hear the results. So maybe we,
Okay.
do it over
Yeah.
lunch one day and have, some pizzas or whatever, and, do something like that. But yeah,
Sounds good. That's
sometime, end of May, beginning of, June, we'll have
okay.
this, and we'll
Sounds
go
good.
from
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a few. It's amazing how many businesses in the metro area, and certainly there's a few in Peachtree Corners that are pickleball oriented within the industry, and coaches, registered coaches, and stuff like that. So I
there.
can see
Alta
it.
just announced the pickleball league now.
I'm sorry.
Alta just created a pickleball league.
Yes. Yes, I heard that. It's
I mean,
amazing.
this is
The
Alta. This is
the
San
Atlanta lawn
Jose,
tennis is
Alta. Now they, yeah. So clearly, there's a demand. The question is it enough for the city to end up putting any time, energy, and, as what
right.
usually happens, money into facilitating
Right.
something? And we want to make sure that we are, are shooting at the bullseye that we need to, and it's not too big, too small, whatever. And
No,
so they'll help us out. So yeah.
yeah. I love the fact that the city not only looking at cutting edge technology, but they're looking at other areas that might be great for our citizens and also the impact that it gives to this community. So gotta love that. There was we also talked about city marshal in a couple of podcasts, city marshal system. So it finally sounds like we're starting to move on it. And you were saying that May 1st, what's happening May 1st?
Beginning of May is, so it's in the budget. Council's seen the rough draft of the budget, and, as
Right.
we've talked about before, they support it. So we're going to stand up, a city marshal program, and it'll start with 3. And so I'm going to start putting out the job announcement out there
Hmm.
with the requirements, and sometime beginning of May they'll go out, and then the June timeframe is when we'll be doing the interviews and job offers, and then July 1, when our next fiscal year starts, now there's the money in the budget to start, standing it up. So sometime in July we'll start having actual uniformed city marshals here, and they'll start filling
Wow.
in those
Okay.
gaps that we talked about before, that we kind of feel the need to have filled. So,
Okay.
the next step in council feeling like they're doing everything they can to try to make the city as safe as we can.
And they're going to be post certified. We talked about just like just like Gwinnett Police, Duluth
They
Police.
will
They're
have the same exact authorities as
right.
any other police officer. Where they will be limited is by policy. So
Right.
policy that we adopt, mayor and council adopt, will end up being the one that keeps establishes their left and right limit.
Right.
So, for instance, by policy, we're not going to have them out on roadways shooting radar guns and writing speeding tickets. Will they have the authority to do that? Absolutely. But we're not going to have them do that, because that's not going to be, in their job description as the city marshal, is defined by policy. So that's how we're going to orient their activities through those policies.
So the city has already gotten all the logistics down and stuff. Do you know where they're going to be sort of officed out of, if you will, or?
Yeah, it'll be out of City Hall. We actually,
Okay.
because of the lead time, purchased the vehicles. We purchased one truck, F-150, and two Ford Police Interceptor Explorers.
Okay.
They're hybrid. They're all hybrid vehicles.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
not all EV. I'm trying to get like what's the Ford pickup truck all EV? What is that?
Oh, heck, I don't recall.
Anyway,
I know.
but they have an all EV pickup truck.
Mm.
The lead time was like a couple years.
Okay. Well, that wouldn't work.
So we got hybrid. The truck will be outfitted in a way that we can have a drone take off from the back cab.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
it will be integrating a lot of drone stuff with the city marshals as a technology asset for them to use to maybe do things preemptively. Maybe they fly them over problem areas, helping to, prevent, hopefully, but if not, solve, criminal activity or do certain things. So, we've gotten some of those. They'll be housed in City Hall.
Okay.
So we've got some renovation going on to reconfigure some of the interior spaces of the building to facilitate their activity. And they'll have a room here where they'll be able to pull all the images off of all of our flock cameras and all the other video cameras and the Fusus system.
So we'll be connected to the Fusus system and all that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Good deal. Talking about budget, that's coming up, right? Because it's the June budget, the annual.
It is. So at the May City Council meeting is when we'll officially present the budget to council, and the community will be able to comment on what they hear. So that'll be at the May Council meeting. And then in June is when council will adopt it.
Okay.
Budgets, there's not a lot of surprises. Obviously, one of the big ones would be the city marshal program.
Right.
One of the other byproducts of that is we're bringing the city attorney position in-house. It will no longer be an employee of a separate, law firm. Just because when you combine what additional municipal court activity we're going to have in addition to all the Curiosity Lab stuff, we just need to have legal counsel here all the time. There's just too much going on, and so it doesn't make sense to always try to pay the overhead to a law firm when you've got somebody who's here all day, every day anyway.
Yeah.
But yet they're not, here. They're an attorney of another firm, so that's a byproduct of it. There's no financial hit. It's just moving instead of paying a third party. It's bringing them in-house.
Yeah, I would think actually probably better. The cost would probably be a little better anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of, now you've got the cities having to pay, health insurance and other things. So we don't pay the overhead for that to the law firm. We're doing it in-house. So it's a wash for all intents and purposes. A couple other things in there maybe of note. We've increased the amount of money we're putting towards street resurfacing. We've got more money in there for multi-use trail activity, trying to do more of that, really focusing on some of the bigger sections like Crooked Creek down the south side of the city. Um,
Right.
we've got a couple of projects that we're looking to do on the south side. We've talked about one is some trailheads and public amenities along Peachtree Corner Circle in between Holcomb Bridge and PIB. That would be part of that. We've got money there. We've got some money, a couple $1 million set aside to do some housing redevelopment in,
Oh, really?
the south part of the city to look for properties that are in foreclosure and, in a state of disrepair, and the city may end up looking to acquire property and then turn around and have, call it starter homes
Hmm.
built, to help with some of the housing.
So we're talking about affordable starter homes then versus $750,000 homes.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. We would end up, because we're involved, we'll be able to make it to where it truly is a starter home. And it would be equity product. It would still be
Right.
homes.
Right.
But yes,
Right.
there would be some sort of a home, home value control set on it so that the
Hmm.
market doesn't push it to a point where it's another example where it's an unachievable for.
So would it be similar to like I don't know how Habitat for Humanity works, but would it be like a lottery system in a way? Because otherwise the market will push that, right?
Well, you use one of the best examples is one of the partners we would look to work with is Habitat.
Okay, cool.
That's exactly. Or Gwinnett Housing Authority has programs where they'll come in
Right.
and they'll build houses, and it'll be specifically oriented to a particular demographic. It's an
Hmm.
equity product. It would be a new home, but you control the purchase price through, you know,
Right.
through the agreement you have with the entity building. It's saying you can't sell this for a value above X because that's not the intent of why we're doing
Right.
this.
Yeah. Otherwise
And
that would just fail at that point, right? For being what you
right,
want
or
to
yeah,
do.
exactly. I mean, we're not
Yeah.
filling a housing demand in that particular income
Yeah.
strata. So in
Yeah.
this way, we have some of the money set aside from the ARPA, funds to
I
do
was
this
going to
kind of
say,
stuff.
so there's federal funds also for that.
And so, the intent would be to remove substandard housing stock from our rolls
Hmm.
and replacing it with new stock, but that it's got to control so that it doesn't get out of hand price wise. And so now
Hmm.
we've, in a small way, filled the demand for starter homes in an area. And at the same time, we've removed, some cases, squalor or vacant homes or
Right.
foreclosed on homes. And so it's
Right.
a win-win. So there's money in there to do some work there on the south side. We've also got, there's going to be a dog park constructed at the town center.
I heard that. That's cool. I'm
So,
sure
yep,
a small dog, big dog, or are they going to be like, they
there
may
will
not
be
have that detail.
there are going to be two separate halves to it. It'll all be
Okay.
astroturf inside there. So it's not going
Right.
to be like just a fence around woods.
Yeah.
But it'll be there at the town center in the woods. Probably the best way to get there would be to walk in from the side parking lot. That's surface parking lot next to Cinebistro.
Yeah. Hmm.
It'll be down there in the wood line. That'll be about the area that
That'll be
you'll.
int- that'll be interesting. Turf, it's artificial turf for the dog park.
Well, if you don't do artificial turf, you start getting into dogs digging. It can get
Mm,
muddy. If it's rain, it starts to
right.
defeat the purpose. So it will be astroturf on the inside,
Okay.
and there will be a separation. There'll be two different ones. One's for bigger dogs, one for
Right.
smaller dogs.
Right.
There'll be shade structures
Okay.
inside, seating areas for the owners in there. So
Cool.
that'll go in over the summer.
Okay.
And right after the last event on our summer event calendar,
Hmm.
so I think it's the last weekend in November.
Yeah.
we will do two things. One is we will be removing and relocating some of it. The very first three playground pieces of equipment that went out to the town center was the slide on
Right,
that hill, and then you've got those two playground pieces. That
right.
area will be relocated in a tot playground, like for
Mm.
oriented for like 4 years and younger.
Hmm.
Will go in that area. So you'll have call it, the succession of age where you have four and under will be in that area. Then if
Right.
you go five to, whatever age, you'll go to where the Qantas is and the big stuff. And then theoretically, if outgrow the Qantas and everything, as like my 14-year-old son would tell me,
Yeah.
that's kid stuff. He'll go and he'll want to go to the fitness trail, and him and his buddies like to see who can you know
Climb
do
the
the
ropes or
navigate some of those obstacles the fastest or whatever. But
okay.
for a kid, you've got, if adhere to the rules and the ages or
Hmm.
whatever, you have kind of a succession of difficulty, if you
Yeah,
will. So that won't start until after the last one, because that'll kind of, that'll be a little bit of a mini construction area, and we don't want to do
sure.
that. And the other thing we're going to do is, at the same time, after the same event, is we will be closing the inside of the sidewalk that forms the big circle there for the town green.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be removing all the soil and replacing it with a drainage field. Because if you've been out there, you
Yeah,
can tell that when it's lumpy.
yeah.
And the reason it is that way is because when it was put in originally, our private partners just put grass over what was existing. And what was existing is the
Mm.
clay that we have here in Georgia. And when you put a lot of weight on the clay, when it's wet, what will happen is,
Hmm.
it'll squish down. And then when it dries out, it hardens. So
Yeah,
it doesn't go back to where it was. And then there's no drainage that's been placed in there. So we're going to remove all the bad
yeah.
clay soil. We're going to put
Right.
back in it's kind of like the French drain you
Hmm.
know, type of underground drainage field to allow it to drain away, and then put good dirt, no clay, and then put sod back. We're
Okay.
going to try one more time with the good soil and drainage to actually have real grass sod. We did consider
Otherwise,
putting AstroTurf,
I was going to say,
artificial
yeah,
turf into it, but it's got a different feel. It's always nice to
yeah,
sometimes have grass. We'll see, but we're not averse to, if we can't keep it, if we can't keep the grass, if it's being used too much, trampled on too much, we may have to
right.
go to the artificial turf. But right now we're going to put back sod, but that'll
Okay.
happen in December, January timeframe.
Right.
And hopefully so we'll have one more season where it'll still be a little, lumpy and everything. Grass,
Yeah,
but
I think people will be fine. Then no
I do
one's going to
too.
get
And
hurt. So,
those two things are not going to happen until after the concert series done, so we
right.
don't interrupt any. The dog park's not interrupting anything, so that'll happen. So yeah,
Right.
more stuff at the town green, and then of course, at the time of this recording, a couple hours from now, the
Hmm.
Forum or North American Properties is having what they're
The
calling
groundbreak.
their groundbreaking on the first phase of the Forum's redevelopment, and they're going
Yeah.
to start removing the first section of interior parking spaces and put in the first section of the linear park, and then they're going to put
Right.
in the food hall and the outdoor seating there at the north end of the Forum. So that'll be happening. The parking deck will be start construction on it sometime later on this 2023
Right.
season. And so once that is finished, they'll then be able to remove the remaining, 3/4 of those parking spaces and
Hmm.
finish up the linear park. So Forum's moving ahead as well. So we got
Yeah.
some stuff going on still.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, lots of stuff. We could probably keep going. I know you were in DC a few weeks ago about with the FAA. And so I know that you were talking about more drone activity.
Yep.
projects probably coming. Well, why don't we make that the last thing? What quick hits can you tell us about that, about the FAA, the drone programs that you think might be coming here?
Based on a visit that we had from the deputy administrator of the FAA, who's in charge of drone regulation. He had been out here to Curiosity Lab once. He invited us back to DC to meet with the entire drone regulation team for the FAA to talk about what Curiosity Lab's ecosystem might offer to the FAA as it looks to figure out how to regulate this type of thing.
Yeah,
And they're in the business of needing more data and data in certain areas. And so we discussed and have come up with some areas where we can really help them out. Areas partnering with T-Mobile and Deutsche Telekom and their 5G wireless
mm,
environment here. FAA is very interested in how well it can handle multiple drones using the same
mm,
wireless signal, especially when it gets beyond visual line of sight, where the drone operator can no longer see directly
right,
the
right.
drone.
Yeah,
We're going to do some stuff in that space. And then our city marshals we're going to end up doing some things around law enforcement and the use of drones, which is a different area of regulation that they've got to get into. So
right.
we're going to be doing some things to help them ultimately come to a point where they can feel like they can start issuing regulations on some of this stuff. It's the Wild West. If you think about it, there's a lot of
Yeah,
regulations that have to be created for private drones, to just, one day they just become so, common that everybody, walks out, throws up their own drone and starts doing their thing. Well, if everybody's
yeah,
doing it, how do you
yeah.
keep it from becoming a
And
problem?
it's
So
and it's been out there a while, so it's interesting how long it's taken to get that regulation in place. You know, people are talking about AI and how long regulation will be in place for that. Who knows? It'll be another decade before we see that. Um, cool. Just a lot of stuff going on in the city of Peachtree Corners. You guys are busy and have a vision, and I'm just excited to see these things happening. So, Brian, I appreciate you coming out every month, giving us all
thanks
this.
for having me again. Thanks for
Yeah,
providing us this opportunity to let everybody know of the cool things that our great community has going for it and what we're
yeah,
doing to leverage to make it even better. So appreciate
yeah,
it.
yeah. No worries. Thank you again, and thank you to EV Remodeling Inc. for being a great corporate sponsor of ours and the work that we do in both in print and the podcast. So check them out, evremodelinginc.com. Brian, thank you so much. And we
Yep.
leave your comments, if you have any, in the comments below,
I mean,
and
stay
and we'll
safe
add to
out
them.
there. We'll see you next